A science story, huh?
These NYU scientists,
I
felt
right.
But
I was so
and I just thought, well,
I had figured it out
it was that golden moment.
because science was on my side.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Story Collider, where we bring you true, personal stories about science. I'm your host, Erin Barker, and this week we're presenting stories about research and the surprises and challenges that we encounter in the midst of it. Our first story today is from Erik Vance. It was recorded in August 2018 at Beer Baron Tavern in Washington, D.C. The theme that night was insight.
Okay, so my first assignment research, freelance story was kind of shitty. And I don't mean like I did a bad job or that it wasn't a very good topic. There was literally a lot of fecal matter in the story. And let me tell you about it. So after months and months of trying to convince an editor to give me a story, I finally got a major magazine to offer me a story that would send me out to do the reporting. And I was so excited, but I was also really, really nervous. The story was about a guy named Jacek Koziel who studies volatile components of complex fermentation matrices. In other words, he smells pig shit for a living. And I was really excited because this was going to take me to Ames, Iowa. And everyone loves Ames, Iowa. And this is the first time that I was going to go into a place and try to get the story and then come out after 3 days. And I was really nervous because, I didn't know if I could just go in and get the story. How do you even do that? And I was especially excited because I had just proposed to my girlfriend who had really supported me emotionally and financially through this whole process of going after this dream of becoming a science writer. And now it was going to happen. So I book a flight to Omaha, Nebraska, and I fly out there. And it was only really when I landed that I learned that Nebraska and Iowa are actually two different states. So I rented a car and drove to Iowa. And as soon as I got out in Iowa, I smelled this chemical. It's actually a phenol. And this is it's a low vapor pressure chemical that basically sticks to anything it touches. And it's often called barnyard or even Band-Aid. And basically it sticks to dust and then it floats for miles. And it's the first thing you smell when you come to a farm. It's this sort of sweet smell. And that's basically what Jacek Koziel studies. That's his jam, is these chemicals that he can sort of break out and figure out what's in them. And he's really good at it. He has this amazing nose. He could have been designing perfumes for Christian Dior or one of the best vintners in the country. I mean, he has this, he can smell these really complex chemicals, but I mean, he doesn't make perfumes and he's not a vintner. I mean, he smells pig shit. And how good is he? He's so good that when you fart, he can tell you what you ate. That's how good he is. And so we met, and he brings me in his lab, and he has the most amazing lab I've ever seen. It's this incredible place. It's all based around smell. So all of the markers are, of course, little smelly markers, and the students can practice and see if they can figure out what smell it is, which is actually kind of hard if you've ever tried to do it. It's grape, maybe lime, I don't know. And then he's got these fume hoods in a normal lab, but these have these like a little tube coming out of them, and they're emitting this smell that smells like farts. Because he's trying to reverse engineer farts. Because why not? It's awesome. And it's just this wonderful, all these little surprises around every corner. My favorite was this one little cabinet that you basically open up, and inside is all of the worst smelling things that he has ever isolated. I don't know if you guys know this, but in Atlanta, the CDC has this vault of all the worst viruses and diseases on Earth and stuff like that. Right? This is like that, except for what? Stank. I mean, this is the Fort Knox of, I guess, ass. It's the worst thing you can ever imagine. I'm saying that this is an undergraduate campus. This is an unlocked cabinet. How how is this even still here? You know, I think of 30 things out there, like right off my head. There's like, oh, that'd be great. You know, so many great pranks. And in the back of this little cabinet, there's one little bottle, and all these bottles are sort of sealed, but one of them is a sealed bottle inside another sealed bottle, inside another sealed bottle. And I was like, oh my God, what is that one? And I go to reach out and grab it, and he's like, you know what? Don't even touch that one. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And it's ladybug taint. See, some of you guys are thinking the same thing I was, right? When you think of ladybug taint, you're thinking, you know, the only taint I know of is, you know, area between the genitals and the asshole. It's the taint, you know? I didn't know ladybugs had that. And I was like, that's really cool. But he says, no, that's not what ladybug taint is. Turns out that ladybugs, anytime you see an animal that's red and black, it's a signal, don't eat me, I will mess you up. And in the case of ladybugs, it's this one chemical that basically is so strong, if you took a teaspoon of it and put it in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, you'd still be able to taste it. That's how strong it is. It's brutal. And basically, when this chemical gets into a grape crush, it tastes like if one ladybug gets in the grape crush, it tastes like a little bit like bell pepper. But if like 2 or 3 get in there, it's ruined or tainted. So ladybug taint, right? Really interesting. And so then he takes me to the pride and joy of his lab. Now this is the machine that basically allowed him to, you know, find ladybug taint and everything else that he's done in his laboratory. And it's called a multidimensional gas chromatography, mass spectroscopy, olfactometer. I mean, we've all seen it, right? You got 2 of them in your basement right now. This is this amazing device that basically takes a chemical, breaks it up into pieces, then puts down one of 2 little tubes. One goes into a mass spec, which tells you what's in it, and the other one goes to a little cup over your nose. And so you can sort of like, you know, smell every little piece. And what's interesting about this is that when it comes to smell, we don't really have a lot of words to describe the smells that are around us. I mean, you think about, like, we got lots of words for shapes and sounds, but how many words do we have for smells? And the only one I can come up with is musty. But like everything else it smells like something. So there's this whole wheel of different things that he uses, like with smells like taco shell or wet cardboard or mushrooms. And so the first thing he puts in there is wine. He puts like a wine sample in there. And we all have that friend who like drinks wine and goes like, oh, is that summer squash? I'm getting a little bit of aged wet leather. Are you getting that? And they're obnoxious, right? We hate that guy. But turns out he's right. All of those chemicals, oh, come on. There's a few of you out there. It turns out that he's right, actually, though. He or she is right. There are these chemicals in the wine that you can actually break up and you can smell them one at a time. And that's what the olfactometer does, is it lets you smell them. And so, but I don't really have the words for that. So what I'm smelling is, is 6th grade camp. My first girlfriend. The house I grew up in. You know, because the part of your brain that processes smells is right next to the part of the brain that processes memory. And so I'm having these great moments. It's wonderful. If you guys ever get a chance to use an olfactometer like this, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. So then he puts in the star of the show, which is pig shit. And he was a little worried that like I wouldn't get all the nuances of the pig shit. So rather than like putting it in for 10 minutes the way he normally would over the pig shit, he puts it in overnight. So he can get like the full brunt of his favorite matrice. And so it's hard to, the first few smells actually are kind of like wine. You still get that sort of mushroom and you get a little bit of the, wet cardboard or whatever. Because they're both fermentation processes. One's organized, the other one's not. But I mean, they're kind of the same. And then you get to the business end of pig shit. And if you've never experienced the business end of pig shit, it's the sulfates. And God, how do I describe this? It's a little like having a manure truck drive over you and then back up over you again to see if you're okay, and then drive up over you again and then back again and over again, just sort of over and over. It's a little like if you've ever been on the metro and you see that there's that one person who's like, you can smell him from the other side of the car. Imagine taking his underwear, putting him over your head, and then sticking your head inside one of those campground toilets and just letting the experience flow over you wave after wave. Like that's what it's like. Just shoving these smells right up into your brain. And the worst thing about the whole thing is, like I said, these things have low vapor pressure. That's why they stick to dust and you can smell them far away. It also sticks to the inside of your nose, so that everything you eat for 3 days or everything you smell tastes like pig shit. And I step out from this thing, and I'm a little scarred, and I sit down with Jacek. And the great thing about Jacek is that the whole time I'm there, he can't figure out why I'm writing about him, because he thinks he has the most boring job in the world. And I talked to him for a while, and I get on the plane, and I have a shit-tasting meatloaf and a shit-tasting cocktail to sort of wash it down. And it occurs to me that I've done it. You know, that in order to do this job right, you have to completely immerse yourself in the story. I mean, I realized that I had literally gone up to my nose in this story in order to find the narrative that I wanted, and that I could do this, and that this was something that, I had reached my goal, and this is my dream. And I get off the plane, and there to meet me is my girlfriend, now wife, who's there to pick me up, and and I've had this amazing experience. And I walk up to her, and she says, "How was the trip?" And I said, "It was, you smell a little like shit." Thank you.
That was Erik Vance. Erik is an award-winning science journalist based in Baltimore. Before becoming a writer, he was, at turns, a biologist, a rock climbing guide, an environmental consultant, and an environmental educator. He graduated in 2006 from UC Santa Cruz science writing program and became a freelancer as soon as possible. His work focuses on the human element of science, the people who do it, those who benefit from it, and those who do not. He has written for the New York Times, Nature, Scientific American, Harper's, National Geographic, and a number of other local and national outlets. His first book, Suggestible You, is about how the mind and body continually twist and shape our realities. While researching the book, he was poked, prodded, burned, electrocuted, hypnotized, and even cursed by a witch doctor, all in the name of science. And you can hear about many of those experiences in Story Collider stories, including the one that we have up next, which I'll explain in a moment. Before we move on to the next story, I want to remind everybody that Story Collider is currently holding online storytelling workshops. I believe we still have a couple spots open in our September workshop if you act fast. You can find out more about that and our upcoming shows and slams at storycollider.org. Our next story today is from our executive director, Liz Neeley, who we are sadly saying goodbye to on Monday. We wanted to release this story that she told at one of our online shows a few months ago as a send-off. And here's a little added bonus. Erik Vance, our previous storyteller in this episode, is actually a character in this story. Did I just blow your mind?
What's the best way to learn a new language? Immersion. But sometimes that's not in the cards. But you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. Now, I might only be 1 week into learning German with Babbel, but I'm so excited to start being able to speak German with my mom. With Babbel, you can learn everything you need to have real-world conversations, and all it takes is just 10 minutes a day. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college, which is bonkers. But Babbel is conversation-based learning with science-backed cognitive tools like spaced repetition and interactive lessons created by real language teachers and voiced by real native speakers. So here's a special limited-time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/story. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/story. Spelled BABBEL.com/story. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So, here we go. Our next story today is from Liz Neeley. It was recorded online in May 2020 in Liz's living room in Washington, D.C. The theme that night was 1 in a Million.
So it turns out that the hypnosis lab, it's not really a lab at all. It's an office. It has a comfy chair and the blinds are drawn, but that's pretty much it. I'm here because my friend Erik is writing a book about pseudoscience and false memories, placebos. And he's been running around having adventures because that's the kind of person he is. He's even managed to get himself cursed by a brujo. And I'm the research assistant, so I'm doing what I'm good at, which is reading papers. I'm digging into the scientific literature to understand, is there any research behind all these incredible claims of how the brain works and how powerful it is? But I've spent, at this point, like 6 hours at the UW Regional Trauma Center watching Erik go through a series of tests he's getting experimented on, and nothing has happened. I'm bored. And like, it's important. I should be excited to be here because, you know, I've heard reports about how clinical hypnosis can do incredible things, like burn victims who are just screaming in agonizing pain. They get hypnotized and boom, like no pain. They can scrub their wounds out. But there's no patience here. It's just me watching Erik, and I'm watching him struggle and, you know, fidget and fail. And all I can think is, I could do so much better. Like, strap me in, measure my brain. Like, I want the electrodes. Like, I want to, like, science me up. But that's not my job. I don't get to participate in this trip. I am just supposed to be observing, recording, and it's boring. So we've been in this hypnosis session for more than half an hour at this point, and Dr. Patterson brings the session to a close, brings Erik out of the hypnotic trance he'd put him into, and kind of just says like, well, that really, nothing happened. Erik agrees he didn't feel anything. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I know nothing happened. I have half an hour of the world's most boring videotape that I've been filming this whole time, and my arm hurts. And I'm disappointed, right? Because like I'm here to see extraordinary things, I had hoped. And I feel like a deeper sense of disappointment too. Like, I had worried that this was pseudoscience, that it was bullshit. And maybe it was, right? Like, science doesn't happen if the experiments don't work while you're watching them, right? Mm. So I'm packing up and thinking like, oh, well, this was a waste of a day. But then Dr. Patterson pauses and he looks at me and goes, well, what if we tried on Liz? And I'm like, it is, I'm so ready. It's my moment. Like, here we go, finally. So Erik and I swap places. I sit in the comfy chair. Dr. Patterson starts talking to me in his very soothing, hypnotic voice. And I'm jazzed because, like, he's a serious researcher. He's a big shot, right? He's faculty both in surgery and psychology. I want to impress him. And I also feel like I'm well equipped to impress him because I'm thinking about the time, like, I was bragging that I can drop my heart rate on demand. And the guy at the bar was like, no, you can't. I was like, yes, I can. And he slapped his iWatch on me. And then I dropped my heart rate on demand and got a gin and tonic out of that. So, but so science. So Dr. Patterson begins by saying that he's going to induce a hypnotic trance in me, and that I may not notice anything at all. That I might just, it may feel like nothing at all is happening. And what's important is that I feel relaxed, but he doubts that I will notice anything. But what he would like me to do is to notice if anything changes for me. And I'm thinking, I'm alert. I'm ready to notice. I'm a scientist. Like, this is what I do. I notice things. Let's go. So Dr. Patterson asks me to imagine a staircase. And he says, as I count down the stairs, you'll step down that staircase in your mind. And it will be easy. And just notice yourself and how you're feeling. And I'm thinking, yeah. I have a sleep app that does exactly this. Like, I've done my homework. Let's go. And so Dr. Patterson starts the count. And he says, I'm going to begin. 1 step down. You're feeling relaxed. 2 steps down. 3 steps down. Notice that you feel calm and relaxed. That's good. And I'm playing along. I'm like, okay, cool. Waiting for something to happen. I'm very relaxed and I don't want to interfere with this experiment. So I'm not trying to judge it. but I'm like just checking in, like, are my sensory systems working? Right? I can hear the scratching of Erik's pen on the notebooks. I'm like, cool. Everything's good. And Dr. Patterson leads me deeper, four steps, five steps deeper and deeper. And at this point, he asks me to take my right hand and raise it, just to lift it off the arm of the chair and let it hover an inch in space. And I'm not supposed to do anything with it. I'm not supposed to voluntarily control it, but he asks me to imagine a string connected to my wrist that attaches to a helium balloon, and that my arm will feel perhaps very light as I relax. And I think, I know what's happening. This is a tool in hypnosis. It's a dissociative tool, right? The idea is that both by suggesting to me that my hand's not under my own control, but that some other force is lifting it, that will deepen my own hypnotic trance. But also, it's a cue for the doctor. So he can tell if my hand is lifting that I'm deeper in the trance, right? So I'm sitting there feeling good. And I remember that this thing is called an ideomotor reflex. And I'm like, if I can remember the word ideomotor reflex, clearly I am not hypnotized. So we're fine, right? And so I play along, I notice, and we just keep going down the steps, and 6, 7, 8 steps down, 9 steps, 10 steps. It's soothing, it's relaxing, I'm noticing. But I personally don't have a busy little monkey brain. I'm not judging, and I definitely don't want my brain to interrupt the experiment. So I'm just noticing. Dr. Patterson talks to me about, remembering and forgetting, and he says that nothing really matters in this experiment except how relaxed and comfortable I feel. And then, we don't have that much time. We've already been in this experiment for a long time. It's time to turn around and go back up the stairs. And we start doing. So he's counting up now. And he says, 10, 9, 8. There's no rush. There's plenty of time. I'm still noticing. Nothing's happening. 7, 6. And his voice is getting louder. I notice his voice getting louder. And he says that when I awaken from my hypnotic trance, that I will feel alert and refreshed. Sounds nice. And he says that I also might feel surprised. That when I come to, I might feel ready to be surprised. And I'm just thinking well, no, I'd be surprised if I'm surprised by anything because I have been noticing and observing this whole time. And I'm very relaxed, but nothing's happened. And then so he's saying, 4 or 5, Liz, you can put your hand down. And I do. And then there's this pause. And he says, Liz, you can put your hand all the way down. And I think, what? Here's my hand. It's hovering just an inch over the arm of the chair, and I put it down. And then all of a sudden, it hits me. My hand is up. It's up here. It's been up here the whole time. What the hell? How did I not notice this? But my eyes are still closed, and I'm not all the way awake yet. And so I force my hand all the way down. But because I think if there's this split second where it feels like I'm going to put my hand through my leg. I'm thinking, what the hell? And he says, 3, 2, 1, you're awake, and you're alert, and you're relaxed and happy. And I'm thinking, I'm awake, and I'm alert. I am not happy. What just happened? What is this? And he laughs, and he congratulates me, and he says, congratulations. You are highly suggestible. And this is the word he uses, suggestible. And I'm just like, what? He tells me I'm part of the 10% of the population that is highly suggestible, which means it's really easy to hypnotize me. And I'm backpedaling really quickly because while I was in the trance, I was thinking, I have such a powerful brain, I can't be hypnotized. And now I'm thinking, I'm so good at meditation that maybe I'm really easy to hypnotize. And I try and tell him this, this is my hypothesis. And he listens, he's like, well, yeah, that's interesting. This idea that mindfulness and hypnosis might be somehow related, but it doesn't work like that at all. And he goes on to tell me that I shouldn't feel bad, that we say suggestible, but that sounds like gullible, like it's something you wouldn't want to be. But he says he thinks of it more as a strength or a skill. And turns out, well, it's really handy to have this particular skill. I can hypnotize myself so I don't feel pain and manage to do things like get an IUD or get all 4 of my wisdom teeth pulled out with no pain medication, no problem, which is awesome. But yeah, it's amazing. But here's the thing. He also tells me that with this remarkable skill I have, that I still should not go to any circuses or stage performances where professional hypnotists are doing like stage work. Because get this, he says that they will be able to see me, that they will recognize me in the crowd, and that I'm susceptible to them. And I'm like, wait, they can see me? He says something maybe about how much white shows around my eyes when I look up. And I'm just thinking, well, I can't see them. I can't like identify a hypnotist. Feels unfair. But really, I think when it all comes down to it, I pride myself on being a science person. I think rigorously. And I had wanted to see something remarkable, something that science struggles to explain. But in terms of like being the thing that science struggles to understand, I don't like that as much, for real. But if I ever have the opportunity to go in and get tested, like be a part of experiments again, I am so ready for that. Like science, this brain of mine, I want to understand. Give me all the tests. Because, if you give me a test, I'm pretty sure I'm going to ace it. Thanks.
That was Liz Neeley. Liz has been the executive director of Story Collider for 5 years and co-host of our weekly podcast. She says she is not a naturally gifted storyteller, but she came into the field the hard way, reading research papers on narrative and science communication. She started her career as a marine biologist, and her first job was to support community-based projects in Fiji and Papua New Guinea. Learning firsthand that science belongs to everyone changed everything. She misses the ocean these days, but loves getting to think about all different kinds of science now. We're so grateful to Erik and Liz for sharing their stories with us. The Story Collider is also very grateful for the support of Science Sandbox, a Simons Foundation initiative dedicated to engaging everyone with the process of science. The Story Collider is led by me, Artistic Director Erin Barker, as well as, for the next few days anyway, Executive Director Liz Neeley, with help from Deputy Director Nissa Greenberg, Operations Manager Lindsay Cooper, and the rest of our amazing team. The stories featured in today's podcast were from shows produced by Miriam Zaringholm, Shane Hanlon, Nissa Greenberg, and me, Erin Barker. The podcast is produced by our podcast team, including Jen Chen and Gwen Hogan. The theme music is by Ghost. Special thanks to Beer Baron and our online platform Crowdcast for hosting these shows, and to Liz for everything she has contributed to Story Collider and taught us over these past 5 years. Thanks for listening.